Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday, November the 9th, 2022. My name is Marlon Hill. I'm a proud Florida State University Law School graduate in 1995. I'm also a proud Florida State University undergraduate as well. I want to welcome you to the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network, BAN TV. It is our platform where we showcase the best of our alumni, our faculty, law students, and those that support our Black Alumni Network family. This year, we honor the presidency of Attorney Conti Moore in Orlando. So we want to thank her for her leadership and the rest of the board. Today, we are going to be focusing on the Black law student. All of us alumni, some of our faculty, we were all Black law students at some point. We're going to be talking with one of our leaders on the Florida State University College of Law campus. And she is also the president of the Black Law Students Association. And we're going to learn a lot more about her journey and about her law student success as well. And hopefully she will be able to provide you with some gems as to your own law school journey, whether you are a Black law student or not. I want to welcome a son of South Florida, 305 to 786. She's also a double no and an esteemed member of the Black Law Students Association and the Florida State University College of Law campus, Briana Saffold. Welcome to BAN TV, Briana.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm really excited.
So glad to have you with us. You are coming to us from the 305-786 in Miami. We're going to hear lots about your law school journey. But before we jump into the law school journey, we definitely want to get a little bit of insight on your background and tell us a little bit about who is Briana Saffold and tell us about your journey before you went to law school.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm from Miami, Florida, so born and raised. I grew up in Liberty City. I attended School for Advanced Studies, where I was able to graduate with my high school diploma as well as my associate's in arts degree.
What high school was that?
I went to School for Advanced Studies, but prior to that, I went to North Miami Beach. But I will say my home school is Miami Central, so I'm a Rocket at heart.
You're a Rocket. You make it. Let's see if you get any folks in the chat, like some Bulls or some Chiefs, or you never know.
I'm just saying it's the best school in Miami. I'm a little bit.
Fighting words. So what was it like going to high school in Miami at the School for Advanced Studies, Miami Central, growing up in Liberty City? Tell us about that.
It was very interesting. So I was actually raised by my grandparents. They did a really good job, I will definitely say. They've had me in every extracurricular activity you think of. I did chess, I did volleyball, basketball, softball, honestly, brain bowls, you name it. My grandmother, she was an educator, so she highly valued education and she felt like education was extremely important. She always used to say, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So I was always doing something over break.
I see you, grandma. Hey, don't want to be in that workshop.
No. And so she had me extremely involved. I did a lot of community service growing up. I actually used to volunteer for Urgent Inc. in Miami. And
that's a great nonprofit organization working in Liberty City and Overtown. Celia Nelson is the president. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I know her and her sister Shadia very closely, as well as their mother. So I spent a lot of time with them growing up and actually got a lot of opportunities, a little bit of exposure to the legal world because of them. I told them when I was younger, I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to be an attorney. And during doing their program, they actually put me in contact with the commissioner's office of Miami. So I actually got to 2 summers in a row intern at the commissioner's office down in Coconut Grove.
Oh, in the city of Miami?
Yes.
Oh, which commissioner did you work with?
I worked with Commissioner Dunn. And so I got to work with him very closely. I got to meet other attorneys and just be exposed to the different areas that you can do in the legal profession. because at that time I thought everyone was just either a prosecutor or, a public defender. And I realized there's so
No,
many other avenues you can take with
absolutely.
going to law school. And so that was my first bit of exposure and doing community service work there. So yeah, that was me growing up in Miami. I was in school, and if I wasn't in school, I was in extracurricular activity, and if I wasn't in extracurricular activity, I was in church, and that was my experience.
So your grandparents kept you very occupied, but who planted the seed that law school was, or being a lawyer was a possibility for you? When did that actually happen or occur?
Well, to get a little personal, my biological father was actually incarcerated for most of my childhood. And so I got that exposure to just the criminal like aspect of the legal world from his
Mm.
incarceration. And I actually had my third grade teacher was aspiring to go to law school. And so he instilled in me that that was a possibility. And he very much encouraged me throughout my education that if I wanted to do something, I can definitely do it. And I had all the tools necessary. I just needed to be disciplined and tap into it. And so I think
Mm.
those two combinations help push me forward to saying, okay, this is something I can actually aspire.
What was the most vivid memory, Brianna, about the justice system that you recall as a child?
Well, I never actually went to visit my father while he was incarcerated, but I had other relatives. And so one of my uncles, he would want to see me and see his daughter because he was going to be incarcerated for a while. And so I have memories of with my biological mother going to the penitentiary and actually visiting him and going through the process of like being patted down as like a child and, the dogs and just walking around an actual prison and being a little confused as to where we were and what was going on, but happy to see a relative.
Wow. So when you started to think about law school seriously in high school, did you lay out a plan, or who did you speak with to say, okay, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be in this type of environment? What did you do to lay out that plan for yourself, if you did come up with a plan?
So I did make a plan. I decided to do some research. I had an amazing guidance counselor, especially at the School for Advanced Studies, Dr. Townsend. He was very
Shout out
instrumental.
Dr. Townsend, Dr. Townsend, my man. Dr. Townsend, we see you, man. Thank you so much.
He was very instrumental because before he had came to the School for Advanced Studies, students were taking the dual enrollment courses, but they weren't putting together the coursework you needed to actually graduate with an associate's in arts degree. And so when I came along, he had kind of put that structure in place and got our principal and the other faculty on board with that concept of we should be encouraging these students to take this opportunity so they can have this degree and be more competitive as far as college is concerned. And
Right,
so in his classes, we would actually spend time doing research on colleges that we wanted to attend, but not just colleges. He also encouraged us that if we wanted to be doctors, if we wanted to be lawyers, if there was something that we knew that required a secondary education, let's try to find those links in what we're learning now and how that translates over. And so I did a lot of research, just looking at what is a degree that lawyers get, because I think that was probably the most interesting question I
right.
had. And then I pulled it up and it's like, well, you can get a degree in anything. It can be English, it can be math, it can be anything that your heart desires.
History, political, the science, the arts, philosophy, business. You can do a number of things to pursue law school. It doesn't always have to be criminal justice and political science. It doesn't have to be that degree, right?
Yes. And so with that piece of information, I just started to decide, okay, well, what do I like? And what do I find interesting? And then I was like, okay, now let's narrow down this list. What will give me just the skill sets I need to be a good law student and an even better attorney? And so I chose psychology because that was a lot of analytical skills. And it was
Hmm.
also something I found interesting. And so I kind of took that as like my step forward. And I would say when I came to Florida State as an undergrad, I definitely was interested in learning if there was similar like opportunities like I've had in high school where I can take undergrad classes. I was considering, okay, well, is it possible that I can take those classes on, a law school level and
Right.
start building up those credits? And so the program hadn't been fully formed by the time I got to Florida State for undergrad, but that's kind of where I got that blueprint of, okay, this is the direction I want to go in.
So why did you choose Florida State?
Well, I went on a college tour
Okay.
with my school. I got to go to all the schools in Florida, and growing up in Miami, and I love my grandparents, but I did want just a little bit of freedom. And I was like, okay, what's the furthest place that I can get away with?
I
And they'll
hear you, Brianna. I hear you. Grandma, you didn't hear that, Grandma. You didn't hear that, Grandma. So you chose Florida State to go away, and so you majored in psychology.
yes, I
So
majored in.
so did you live on campus? Did you live off campus? What was undergrad life like for? What do you think you did specifically at Florida State in your undergraduate that prepared you the best for law school?
I would definitely say my extracurricular activities prepared me the best. I am definitely one of those students, like typical law students, who found school to be easy and things come naturally for me. And so I would say in law school, definitely my study habits have improved for the level of rigor that law school offers that I didn't find myself having for undergrad. But regarding your question, I would say I did Sisters to Service, which was one organization that FSU had at the
Mm,
time. They did mentoring with young girls here in the Tallahassee community. So we were, and we did it at Walker Ford Community Center. And so we would go there every single week. Each day was different. We came up with lesson plans for the girls, and
mm,
we just did those lessons plans with them. We engaged in the community with them. So a lot of them did like the local pageants, or they did the trick or treating, and we were just always there. We would bring them to FSU's campus twice a
mm,
year, just so they can get an idea of like, okay, this is what college looks like, and you can go to college, and college is amazing, and this is why we're pushing education, and we would assist them with their homework. And so I
mhm,
think seeing how I can give back to the community was helpful. And then also that organization allowed me to grow as a leader. And so working
mm,
with other individuals and being able to communicate. And I would say the communication piece definitely was evolved throughout my time at Florida State, with Sisters to Service, also with my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Um,
okay, now.
we definitely had a lot of conversations, and then not just working in my chapter on a local level, but also being one of the representatives for our regional convention
Mhm,
while I was at Florida State. So then organizing and talking to people like
right.
across a region was also a little difficult, but we found a way to make it work. And getting involved in student government and getting involved in Alpha Kappa Psi, which is a co-ed business fraternity. So I learned how to
Right.
be extremely professional and how to carry myself in those little different things that our community doesn't always necessarily prepare us for.
Well,
So just
I'm really glad, Brianna, you mentioned that in terms of extracurricular activities, not just something to do or something to put on your resume, but they're real core skills, communication skills, organization skills, discipline, structure, um, time management. All of these things are important, for law student success. And having majored in psychology, when did you decide to plan out, okay, you are a freshman, sophomore, junior? When did law school now begin to become a serious consideration? And how did you plan and prepare for that eventuality?
So I definitely started planning more towards my junior and senior year. I realized, as far as for myself financially, because I'm a first generation, so I was the first person to go to college and the first person to kind of do all of this. And then now I want to get a secondary degree in law, and there's no one else to really ask those hard questions to in my family. And so I reached out to some of my line sisters who had
Mm.
actually went off. And so they kind of communicated to me and shared with me their experiences.
So
And
your
so
sorority provided you a circle of support mentors.
yes. So they
That's
were able to provide me with some support, and I spoke with my family about it, and then we just kind of agreed maybe I would benefit more from taking a gap year. And so I
mm,
decided I would take a gap year, and I was very strategic with what I wanted to do for my gap year. I wanted it to be an experience that would set me apart from other applicants
mhm.
whenever I did decide to enter into that cycle.
What
And
did you
so
do?
I worked at Deutsche Bank for 3 years. I
What?
was yeah.
On payroll or intern?
No, it was on payroll.
Hey, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So yeah, I did that
What
for
is
3
to a
years.
Dutch bank?
I worked in their know your client department. That's a part of the compliance regulation
Yeah,
department at Deutsche Bank. So essentially, our business people on Wall Street would, link up with clients like Goldman Sachs or Blackstone, and they would be like, okay, we want to open up another account
right.
either here in the US or we want to open up an account in the United Kingdom.
So you were the
Sometimes,
CIA of the bank.
yeah, I did a lot of research. I did a lot of research. I
Right.
put things together, looked at a lot of business entity records to make sure everything was legitimate and, there wasn't any money laundering or any terrorist funding or anything like that happening that shouldn't be happening.
Look at
Um,
Briana being the FBI of finance. So when did you decide, okay, law school now, I'm going to have to apply. I'm going to have to write my personal statement. I'm going to have to tell the LSA, LSAT. Tell us about that process and what did you do to prepare and line up your applications and why do you think your applications were successful? Tell us what did you do that was unique about preparing the best law student application?
So the next steps I took was while at Deutsche Bank, I tried to make an impression on my coworkers, especially the higher up executives. Whenever they
Mhm.
would come, I was front and center. I did a lot of public speaking for the organization. Internally, I volunteered to assist and be a part of very niche groups as well as to separate myself from the rest of the group by being a subject matter expert in my field. And so that was one of the things I did was just work really hard while I was at work because I
Excellent.
knew I was going to need a letter of recommendation.
So
And
did you go to work and prepare for the LSAT at the same time?
yes, I did.
Hmm.
So I would work.
Would you recommend that in retrospect?
I would not recommend that in retrospect, or at least not in the industry that I was in. My
Mhm.
industry required me to work like 50 to 60 hours a week at times, especially during the busy seasons. So, like right now would be a busy season for the bank because it's the final quarter. And so everyone's trying to get that last little push of, accounts open up and running. And so I
Right.
definitely wouldn't recommend studying, at least in such a high intensity area.
Mhm. Did you take a course?
I did take a course.
Mhm.
I took a course, and I think that was one of my highest scores that I took because I did take the test at least 3 times. And so
Okay.
when I finally took a course, it really bumped my score up. And yeah, so I did that.
Mhm.
I had my coworkers read over my personal statements, my diversity statements. They really assisted and helped me. I had a really great relationship.
What was the core message of your personal statement?
My core message was I wanted to be the change for people who looked like me.
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to stand in that room and really argue their case and seek justice for them. And I also alluded to, I also may have endeavors to be a judge one day. And
Hmm.
so that would be a great place and a great training ground. I also researched every school that I applied to. I looked into their clinics. I toured the schools. I
Hmm.
went to the LSAC forum and I got as much information about each school I was interested in as possible so I can craft each personal statement to that school.
So you really just opened yourself up to be a sponge on all the information that you could get about preparing yourself for the opportunity. So tell us a little bit about the choices of schools now. How many schools did you pick to apply to? And why did
So
you pick those schools?
I chose a lot of schools, I will say.
More
And
than
for
10?
any more than 10,
Wow.
I looked at the schools that had programs that were geared towards social justice and social change,
Mhm.
as well as schools that had like a robust business program because business was also one of my interests. I was working in business sector for 3 years. So I was like, I would like to continue that education. And, if it was a bonus, if there were some entertainment law classes. And so that's kind of how I chose the schools, as well as meeting each of the different representatives at the LSAC forum really helped because I got to have that interpersonal connection and just kind of see, how I would be received as a potential future student helped me narrow down that list. I will also say it wasn't like I was spending a whole lot of money on these applications because I
Right.
did get waivers. Every school gave me a waiver. And
Wow.
I also received waivers through the LSAC as well. So I didn't really have to come out of pocket a whole lot for the application.
You're a lucky one. But what did Florida State University do to seal the deal?
Well, I had been here for undergrad, and
Mhm.
so I was comfortable and I was familiar with Florida State. And I also knew what Florida State had to offer and how my experience had went in undergrad. And I just knew it would most likely be identical, if not a better experience. I
Mhm.
knew going to Florida State, one, I would I would be successful in my classes. I knew everybody would be supportive and nurturing. The environment is open for me to have open dialogues with my professors and my fellow colleagues. And I also know Florida State was going to make sure I would pass the bar exam as well as have secured employment during my time at FSU for internships and externships, and then also post grad offers.
Quick station break here. If you're just joining us here on the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network, we're here on BAN TV where we're highlighting the best of our alumni, law students, faculty, and friends of the Florida State University College of Law. I'm here speaking with Briana Saffold. She is a native of Miami, Liberty City, O5 Stand Up, the School of Advanced Studies, and she is now the president of the Black Law Students Association at Florida State University College of Law. So, Briana, you get accepted, you get that letter. Take us to that moment when you received the email or the letter of acceptance. Where were you? What did you do?
Well, actually, I received a phone call first before I received the letter.
Who called
I
you?
actually was, it was Peyton Smith in admissions. She called me. I was actually asleep and I saw I had a missed call and it said 850. And I knew I was waiting for a response from Florida State. So I was like, okay, immediately I must call them back
Right.
and let them know that I'm ready to receive whatever they are
You
giving
fixed
me.
up, you fixed up
And
the voice and
yes, I hopped right up. And so I called Peyton and she explained to me that I had been accepted and I was like super excited. And I told her, thank you so much. I asked her if there was anything else I needed to do. And like she just explained the entire process to me and the next steps I needed to take and, to wait to receive the email and that my portal will be updated soon. And so that was pretty much I was literally at home.
excellent. Before you accepted the offer from Florida State University to go to law school there, did you ever visit the law school campus, go to any classes, any programs while you were an undergraduate student?
Yes. So when I was still in undergrad, before I graduated, I actually did go to the law school campus. I believe I spoke with Ralph Kiefer and we had a conversation. I asked him some more probing questions just about the new budding program that they were planning to implement and trying to see if I could still take part in that. And then I actually did a tour around the school, popped in and sat in on a couple of classes. And I
Right.
was just like, okay, I can do this.
Right. Would you recommend that for any undergraduate student thinking about law school to
Yes,
visit to go on a law school tour maybe?
Yes, I think that'll be really beneficial. You'll also get to run into students so you can ask them like questions, make connections, possibly even lead to a mentoring possibility. And
Right.
then definitely sitting in on classes because I think when you're looking online and you're looking at that first year course load, it sounds very scary and it's very intimidating. But I think sitting in on the class and just seeing how the classes are structured, how the professors actually, manage their classrooms, it takes away a little bit of that anxiety. And it shows
Right.
that you can actually do that.
So you got accepted. What did you do the summer before you started law school?
The summer before I started law school, I worked. I was still working at Deutsche Bank before I started law school. And I just want to clarify. So I transferred into FSU Law and I actually did my 1L year at another university.
Okay.
And so when I was working at Deutsche Bank, I worked the entire summer. I did a lot of overtime to try to build some money for law school
Right.
in my reservoir. And I worked on finding an apartment and everything. And since that was the year COVID started, everything was remote. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out if I needed to move, if I needed to stay. Was classes going to be in person? Were they going to be hybrid? Were they going to be fully over Zoom? And so part of my time, still trying to enjoy my friends and work as much as I possibly can. But also a little concerned about what classes would look like.
How did you survive that period, Briana? That 2022 or 2019 to 2021 period. What was that like? What did you do to keep it together?
I tried to make sure I did something at least once a week that made me happy, whether that was going to the nail salon or whether that was going out to dinner with a family member or a friend. Yeah, I did a lot of that. I also
Probably should do that. We probably should do that anyway, right?
You should, but you definitely have to make a more, I think, conscious effort to take a step away when it's Zoom, because you're sitting in front of a computer all day. And then sometimes it doesn't feel as if you're doing as much work because you're not actually getting up and moving around. Like, it's different now when I go to class and then I'm in class for an hour and then I'm like, okay, now I walk to a new class and I'm in another class it's like I'm just sitting at a desk all day. And so I had to.
What else did you do to prepare yourself for the first year, to put yourself in that mood, that moment, this new chapter for your life? What did you do to prepare yourself besides supplies, get your apartment, get settled? You're already familiar with the environment in Tallahassee, so that's a plus, right? It's not a new city, it's not a new campus environment. But what else did you do specifically that you think well prepared you to kind of make the adjustment?
Oh, I reached out to BLSA. I reached out to them and I asked to be in the group me. I started talking to people and making friends and asking people for like their personal phone numbers, asking them questions about professors, if they already knew information about them. Then people offered their outlines and notes to me, and I was just like, okay, thank you so much. And
did you know what those outlines and notes were, the purpose of those outlines and notes at the time?
I learned very quickly. And so I was very thankful for that. And then I also tried to set up like, okay, well, I'll be in town from these dates to these dates. Does anyone want to like hang out and be friends? And so that's pretty much what I did to feel welcomed and a part of the community.
So like being on the Survivor show, you use their social skills.
Yes.
So there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there and myths about the first year of law school. If you were to demystify what the first year of law school is like, supposed to be like, for anyone that's watching, current law student or future law student, what would you say?
I would say that you don't have to be aggressive. You can actually be kind and you can be yourself and you can still be successful in law school. I think a lot of people hear law school and they think, oh, you have to be a shark or, you have to be very aggressive and not helpful to your classmates. And you can still be successful and have and be a kind person. You don't necessarily have to be that type of person that's like, I won't share outlines, I won't share notes, so I won't do study groups. You can do all those things and still be successful. At the end of the day, it's how will you personally excel on the final exam that's going to make your grade. It's not necessarily, oh, I aided this person who happened to be sick that day and gave them my notes for the class. That's not going to stop you.
Right. How would you describe yourself as a first-year law student? Are you the marathon studier? Are you the sprinter? Are you do it in different phases? How would you describe your study rhythm?
I would say a little bit of both. Once I got the hang of a certain subject, if it came very second nature to me, I can kind of breeze through that information quickly. And then things that were just a little bit more dense, like civil procedure, I had to break it up in stages and read a little bit on day one and then a little bit on day two and do some essential supplementals, questions and readings to kind of fully grasp what I just read.
What in the classroom, what would you say, how did you adjust to the teaching style of law professors, and what kind of tips would you give to a future law student or current law student to adjust to that type of teaching style?
I would definitely say come to class prepared. Make sure you read, you brief. I actually prefer book briefing the best. So, for those who don't know, book briefing is kind of when you take post it notes and you put them over certain sections of the case and you write down things that you pulled out of that paragraph or out of that section. And so I felt like that was more helpful because I was able to glance down quickly and be able to answer the professor's questions and remember what I was thinking when I read the case the first time through. And so I would definitely say, being prepared is one thing. And then also don't be afraid to say something if you think it's a dumb question. There have been multiple times where the professor has
Right.
cold called on me and I said what I thought, thinking it didn't make any sense. And the professor actually liked what I said and cleaned it up and put it in their own words. But
Right.
the evidence was the same. And I was like, oh, wow. And it kind of builds confidence the more you volunteer and participate.
And sometimes you're not supposed to know.
Yes. Sometimes it really is. It depends.
Right. So the first year law school, they picked the classes for you, right? What was your favorite class, and what class did you think, I don't want to do that again?
I would say my favorite class was contracts. It was extremely fun. The professor I had for contracts, he actually wrote his own book. And
Mm,
so reading the book would be like going to class because it'd be like, wow, like you said that. And like this, it's right there on the page, like
mm,
the same exact phrase. And so he also pulled very fun, interesting cases for us to study. And so I definitely enjoyed that. I also enjoyed civil procedure. Surprisingly enough, I liked civil procedure. I liked just the cases and like the implications that changing the civil procedure in our country and how those ramifications happen to people, especially Black and Brown people, when it comes to bringing cases forward. I would
right.
say a class that I probably wouldn't want to do over is criminal procedure, specifically crim pro police. I feel like my blood pressure went up every day that I went to that class. It was
Well,
cool. I got a good grade, but me and the professor tussled every day.
hey, you got to have one professor that you tussle with. What do you think Florida State University did to support you as a first year law student, or a law student in general, to really power your success?
I would say Florida State gives a lot of information, especially when regarding career services. You get a Canvas page, you get a specific time in orientation. They have meetings throughout the time you're at Florida State. They, partner with the student organizations that you might be in. So if you don't go to career services like standalone events, you'll most likely get that same information from BLSA
Right.
or from HILSA or from any of the other student organizations on campus. They'll still reiterate that information to you. They also have a very open door policy. They don't, close the door in your face. And they do a really good job of like just giving you all the information you need with simplicity, and assisting you with finding jobs. Like anytime that they hear about anything, they're giving it to the students and they keep a track of like what you're interested in. So if
Mhm.
you
Do
tell
you
them
find do you find, Brianna, that it's important for you to be proactive on asking for what you need or what you want to support you as a law student? To be
I think so.
proactive. Mhm.
I think so. I think part of being a law student is being proactive. I think the typical law student is going to be a student who is proactive. They most likely were proactive before they came to law school in undergrad, or if they took a gap year, they were most likely the student or the individual at work who asked a lot of questions. And so I think it's important to continue having that while you're in law school.
Mm,
Because yes, those opportunities are there and they're present, but sometimes you have to actually, inform the other individual this is something you're interested in and
right.
not just wait for it to fall in your lap.
Right. Let me put you on the spot a little bit, to be proactive. What do you think the university could do more of, to support law students, or even to support specifically Black law students?
I would say for the Black law students, I believe we should have more classes on just diversity, racism, or critical theory. I think those classes are really important because it helps our colleagues understand the cultural differences that other people may have that don't
Mhm.
necessarily look like them. And so I think it also helps people be more mindful when, they're putting on organizational events or having discourse online, and how their fellow colleagues will see it that don't necessarily share the same background and belief that they have. I would also say that for the Black students in particular, I think the endowment that Celicia Smith Gordon gave and that the school is promoting, I think that'll be really good for future students to come. I also think, as well as having funds for public interest, because I
Mm,
believe a lot of the Black students do want to go into public interest. However, a lot of the public interest opportunities are unpaid. And
right.
so most of the Black students, being first generation students, they can't take a semester or 2 semesters off from being paid at their jobs.
Right.
And so I think if the school can give more funds and resources to those opportunities to kind of alleviate that financial burden and stress, I think that would be very beneficial for the
Excellent.
students.
I just want to plug the Koziak Minority Mentoring Foundation. We have summer public interest fellowships where we pay a public interest for law students to work with a public institution. So, please go to the kmmfoundation.org and you can apply for next summer for a public interest fellowship. So let's talk a little bit about preparing for exams before we turn to the Black Law Students Association. What did you do to prepare for law school exams? What was unique about law school exams that you learned to get into, to prepare to be successful at them?
I would say what's unique about law school exams is 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be a multiple choice exam. That's something distinctively different from undergrad, where most of those exams are multiple choice questions. I will also say the type of multiple choice questions are unique. When you do look at a law school exam that does have multiple choice, they're very high level. They're not necessarily asking, can you compare, A to B? It's more or less of like, okay, A and B happens. So now what happens next? Like, what is the cause and effects? So you have to be able to do that analytical, high level, critical thinking skill set. And then as far as the essays are concerned, most of our exams are based off of essays. And you're pretty much, for lack of better words, fighting to get the most points on an exam
Right.
when you're
You're trying
doing.
to find the trees in the forest.
Yes, yes. And you try to make sure you get all the low hanging fruit, but you also get to the top quicker
Right.
than the next student in the room. And so I think that was very interesting, because professors, especially that first year, that's your first time doing it, you're not necessarily trying to just say, this is the black letter law. They understand the black letter law, and they expect you to understand the black letter law. They're looking for you to apply the black letter law to the case at hand. And so it's taking that next step in the analysis, and also knowing, okay, what needs to be expounded on in this essay and what's not that important. What can
Mm.
be a sentence and what actually needs to be a full-blown paragraph. And so I think that was one of the biggest shocks with taking a law school exam for the first time. I definitely prepared myself by talking to the upperclassmen and asking them for their opinions. I also attended the school's final exam preparation whenever that was occurring, so I can get a better understanding of what to expect. And
What is
then
that? What is that final exam preparation like? What was that program about?
So typically it would be student advancement, and they would come forward and they would have select students who excelled really, really well in each of the sections the prior year or when they were a first year student. And
Okay.
so they give their different tips and suggestions on how do you best prepare and take the exam.
Love
And then
that. Love
and
that.
they also give you a couple practice questions in there.
That's a gem. That's a gem right there. So you talked about academic preparation for your testing and your study style. I know that you're very involved with your extracurricular activities. So how did you get involved with BALSA and tell us about your BALSA journey and now being president?
Okay. Well, like I said earlier, I started at a different institution for my 1L year. And so when I was there, I joined as the 1L representative. And as the 1L representative, you kind of do whatever the other executive board members need you to do. You just step in and you assist and you help. And it just gives you a great look into the organization and how it works, as well as how the school works. And so then my second year, I was at Florida State and I was just a very involved BLSA member. So if they needed assistance in something, I just did it. So if we needed some flyers made, I assisted with flyers. If we wanted to help plan like a social gathering, I helped plan a social gathering. If the mock trial team needed someone to play their witnesses, I just was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll play their witnesses.
Wow,
And so
that's awesome.
once I realized, okay, everyone's receiving me really, really well, and I really love this organization, and this is amazing being in person and seeing what everyone is doing. I was like, okay, maybe I would run for president, and it was something I wanted to do going into my 1 year is run for BLSA president. And so I wasn't sure if I wanted to run. I was like, maybe someone else wants to do it. And a lot of my friends were like, no, you should do it. And I was like,
So
are
you
you
got
sure?
nominated.
Yes.
Did you have an opponent?
I did. I
Okay.
did.
So what was your platform?
So my platform was increasing the 5%, also working with admissions.
What is the 5%?
So 5% of attorneys in America are Black, and it's been 5% or straddles 5%, sometimes 4.8. And the goal is to increase that number and make it beyond 5%.
What's the percentage? What's the percentage at Florida State?
I believe the percentage is probably at least 12%. I think it's 12% of the students here are Black. And so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But we need to increase it more.
Yeah. What do you think for people that may not understand what it's like being a Black law student or just a Black student at a majority school? Is there a difference? Is there something unique about a Briana Saffold at a Florida State University College of Law? And if you do think that there's something special and unique about that, how do you adjust and to be successful in that environment if it matters?
I think it is special because the majority of my classmates don't look like me. I can be in a room where the max capacity is 90 students, and I can probably count on both hands, maybe sometimes one hand, how many other students are in the room that actually look like me. And so I think that is unique and special in itself for each of us who do attend these PWIs and take up these spaces. Because one, I think bringing our unique circumstances and our cultural backgrounds in these spaces are especially significant. These people that I have as colleagues, they're going to be the future president one day. They're going to be the judges and the justices. They're going to be the legislative. They're going to be the senators. They're going to be the individuals who impact our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
And if I can go into this space and have them think or reconsider a position they may have politically or a position that they may have legally and kind of bridge that intersectionality that sometimes isn't always apparent to them, I think that helps. And I think all of the students here at FSU, that's kind of what we do every single day when we go into these spaces.
Right. What advice would you give to any law student or future law student about interacting with, engaging with people that don't look like them, that would help with their success?
Well, I would definitely say go in with a positive, open mindset. I don't think going in closed-minded is going to be beneficial for yourself or for the other individual. I will also say, make sure you have your own network and your own group of people that are there for you. And if you are a Black student, or even if you're not a Black student, identify as being Black, but you feel open and welcome in our community, you are more than welcome to join BLSA and be a part of our organization and bring your lived experiences to the table and have that open, honest conversation. I think as a student, that's kind of the responsibility here.
What do you have planned for BLSA in the next year, and what do you hope your BLSA legacy to be?
Well, I hope to have a mentorship program here for pre-law students, specifically students at Florida State University and at FAMU who are interested in going to law school. So we've been connecting with the pre-law societies on both of those campuses and the other organizations that they have, and just getting that information out to them. I've been working with the other registered student organization leaders here at the law school to be willing to actually be mentors to these students, because I think that it is important for us to give back to students, especially since they have the interest and the schools are right there. You know, it makes no sense that they're literally less than 5 minutes apart and we don't have as big of an influx of students coming into the school that are from FAMU and from Florida State. So I would definitely say that's probably one of my biggest goals. I also want to set up, you know, an endowment or some sort of foundation for the mock trial and the moot court team for BLSA. Those teams are phenomenal. They're national award winning teams, and I think we should have the financial support to continue to make the school proud and make BLSA proud and continue to represent the school.
What's your big ask? What's your big ask for that endowment? What's your big number that you think, if you could wave a magic wand and some alumni out there writes a check for the endowment for the mock trial team, the moot court team, what would that be?
I think at least $100,000. I think that would be a really good start for just multiple generations, because these competitions can run us easily just for one team alone, $10,000.
Right. Okay.
So if we have the funds to be able to send, you know, two mock trial teams, two moot court teams to a competition and show out and bring all these awards back home, I think that would be amazing.
Well, you know, we're talking to Briana Saffold. She's the president of the Black Law Students Association of Florida State University College of Law. Right now, I'm happy to take any questions for any of our Band TV viewers that are listening to us right now as we come to a close here on our fall episode, our second fall episode here on Band TV. Happy to take any questions that you may have for Briana. We can certainly answer those questions when the recording goes up on our Facebook page. So are we going to see you and your name above a courtroom, general counsel to an entertainment industry corporation, or working for Deutsche Bank?
So it may be the first two. I don't necessarily know about Deutsche Bank.
Right.
The banking industry is interesting, but I think I would like to branch out to some other areas.
Okay.
Post grad, and so I am interested. I'm currently weighing some options for my post grad employment, and so we'll see what happens in the future. I can definitely see maybe having my own firm and working in entertainment, and possibly transitioning into the judicial arena if possible.
And do you think that you will remain in Florida, or you're open to traveling wherever in the United States to practice?
I'm definitely open to traveling wherever in the United States to practice, but I will be sitting for the Florida bar.
Yes, that's definitely a full-time job before you make that, you start to write that new chapter. So Briana, we just want to thank you for being here on Band TV. Is there anything else that you'd love to share with our Band TV audience before we close our pre-Thanksgiving episode?
Well, I will say, if there are any students out there that is interested in Florida State University or just interested in the law school process, it is free to, you know, reach out to us. I think our handle is up.
Yeah, there's your Instagram. Yeah,
so our Instagram
is DM.
Yes, they can DM FSU BLSA, and we would gladly answer their questions. And if anybody wants to connect and they want to do a tour, we would gladly give you guys a tour.
Well, listen, Briana, you have been a spark and so much energy and passion with regards to your journey. We're so inspired by what you've accomplished and going. We want to also thank you for your leadership of leading this charge on behalf of the Black law students and creating such a supportive atmosphere on campus, and also engaging with the rest of the campus as well. Wish you the best as you prepare for your first of the last 2 sets of exams before you graduate next year. And we are looking forward to seeing you up in some headline in the next few years as one of our Black alumni here. Someone here has to say, great job, Briana. Destiny Garcelle Lawson, she is a future law student. She's probably reaching out to you as well. But we want to thank you for the sharing all of these as a law student, and just wish you the best in your tenure as you close as being president of BLSA and you're finishing your 3L. You can smile ear to ear. What does it feel, before we close? What does it feel like to be a 3L?
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. I am so happy. The countdown is real. I've been looking at venues for my graduation party, trying to find a photographer, someone to do my hair. I
Hey, so tell us a little. What do you think? What has changed about you from a 1L to a 3L? What have you learned about Briana, the 3L, as opposed to Briana, the 1L?
I would say Brianna the 3L has a definite different approach to handling conflict. Contrary to popular belief, law school does not teach you to be aggressive. It
Mm.
actually teaches you how to diffuse situations and come to common, agreements between two separate parties. And so I would definitely say my mindset, and as well as I talk to people, being on the trial team for BLSA and for FSU has really taught me how to ask very direct, pointed questions. And sometimes my friends are like, I am not on a witness stand right now.
Listen, Liberty City, stand up. School of Advanced Studies, Miami Central, stand up. Florida State University, undergraduate, the psychology department. Thank you so much for giving us the gift of Briana Saffold at Florida State University College of Law. We want to thank you for your leadership, and we look forward to connecting with you at FSU BLSA on IG, Instagram. I will see you in the DMs. I'll see you when you come back home to South Florida, Briana. Thank you for joining us here on Band TV. Best of luck and happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Thank you. You too.